This bomber took off from a base in Louisiana this morning. It was built in 1962. Its pilot was born 30 years later. Its mission today is the same mission it had in 1965. Fly to a fixed altitude, drop ordnance, return home. 3 of its replacements have been ordered. 1 was canceled. 1 is being retired ahead of schedule. The 3rd just made its first flight. The B-52 is still flying. The Pentagon plans to keep flying it until 2050. That would make it the only military aircraft in history to serve for a full century. And it's not even the strangest case. So the question is, why don't these planes die? 2 more airplanes do the same trick. The KC-135 tanker, designed in 1954, still refuels fighter jets every single day, sometimes in the same airspace as fighters built 50 years younger. The DC-3 from 1936 still hauls cargo in dozens of countries, taking off from gravel strips that no commercial airliner could safely touch. 3 airframes drawn up before color television existed, all 3 still working for a living. The brand new B-21 Raider that just made its first flight is supposed to replace the B-52, eventually. But by the time it does, the B-52 will have been in service for nearly 80 years. To understand why machines like this refuse to die, you have to start with the one that came first. December 1935, Santa Monica, California. Donald Douglas is staring at a prototype called the DST, the Douglas Sleeper Transport. 21 passengers, 2 engines, designed across the United States with a single stop. When it entered service in 1936 as the DC-3, it rewrote civil aviation overnight. Within 4 years, the DC-3 was carrying 90% of the world's airline passengers. Then the war came. The military version, the C-47, dropped paratroopers on D-Day, ferried supplies over the Himalayas, in a mission so dangerous pilots called it flying the hump. General Eisenhower later listed the C-47 as one of the 4 pieces of equipment that won the war, alongside the bulldozer, the Jeep, and the 2.5-ton truck. After the war, surplus C-47s flooded the civilian market for almost nothing. A used military DC-3 cost less than a new car. Small airlines bought them by the dozen. Bush operators in Africa, South America, and northern Canada bought them because they could land on grass, gravel, ice, almost any flat surface with a few hundred meters of room. The kind of margins that make modern designers uncomfortable because every extra pound costs fuel. But every extra pound also buys you a decade of service. The DC-3 was designed before computer modeling existed, so the engineers used brute force. They built it strong enough to handle anything they couldn't simulate. The same logic, 2 decades later, gave us the B-52. Boeing designed the B-52 in 1952 as a high-altitude strategic bomber. Then the Air Force flipped the mission to low-level penetration, then to standoff cruise missiles, then to close air support over Afghanistan, where the B-52 was dropping ordnance from 30,000 feet on operations the original designers could not have imagined. The airframe absorbed every change. Why? Because Boeing built it like a bridge. The wings flex up to 12 feet under load and don't crack. The Air Force rates each B-52 for 37,500 flight hours. Most of the active fleet hasn't reached half that yet. 58 of them remain in active service. The youngest is 63 years old. Crews call them buffs, which officially stands for Big Ugly Fat Fellow. Unofficially, the F stands for something else. The KC-135 is the same story written in aluminum. It came off the same Boeing 367-80 prototype that gave us the 707. designed to survive constant takeoffs and landings with a full fuel load, 50 tons of jet fuel sloshing inside the fuselage on every mission. By 2025, the Air Force has used these tankers for nearly 70 years, and the planned retirement keeps slipping. Then there's the second factor that keeps these airplanes alive. Once you build enough copies of any machine, an entire ecosystem grows around it. Mechanics specialize in it, suppliers stockpile parts, training pipelines exist. New components are still being manufactured under contract because the demand never went away. Replacing the airplane means demolishing the ecosystem. Up in Canada's Northwest Territories, an airline called Buffalo Airways still operates DC-3s built in the 1940s. They land on frozen lakes. They fly in temperatures of -40°C, where modern jets won't start. Their owner once told the documentary crew that finding parts is no harder than finding parts for a Toyota. There are warehouses full of them in Florida and Arizona. Nothing about these aircraft is exotic anymore. The B-52 still has analog dials in the cockpit. The DC-3 uses radial piston engines, technology from before jet aviation existed. The KC-135 still needs a flight engineer, a position that disappeared from civilian airliners in the 1980s. By every metric of modern engineering, these planes should be obsolete. But obsolete and replaceable are not the same thing. The B-21 Raider made its first flight in November 2023. It is designed from scratch to replace the B-52. The Air Force plans to build at least 100 of them. Each one will cost around $700 million in 2024 money. The first squadrons are scheduled to enter service late this decade. And here is where the story gets strange. The Pentagon's official plan is to fly the B-21 alongside the B-52, not instead of it. The B-21 will handle penetration into contested airspace. The B-52 will keep doing what the B-52 has done since the Eisenhower administration: carry a lot of weapons, stay airborne for 15 hours, drop ordnance from outside the threat envelope. The replacement is finally here. The original is staying anyway. This is the pattern. Replacement aircraft are designed to do everything better. They cost 5 or 10 times more, take decades to develop, and arrive late. By the time they enter service, the threat they were designed for has already changed. The B-52 keeps flying because its job description is so simple it never goes out of date. Drop bombs, carry cruise missiles, hold a lot of fuel, stay airborne for 15 hours. Same logic with the KC-135. The mission is to give other airplanes more fuel. That mission has not changed since 1957, and it isn't going to. The DC-3 carries cargo to places where runways are short, dirt, or both. The mission outlives the technology. And here is the truth. These airplanes don't survive because they're the best. They survive because replacing them is harder than keeping them. To retire the B-52, the Air Force has to design a new bomber, fund it for 30 years, train new crews, build new hangars, certify new weapons systems. To keep the B-52 flying, they buy a new engine. That's exactly what's happening. 8 new Rolls-Royce engines per aircraft, installation through the 2030s. The first re-engined B-52 is expected to fly in 2028. Same airframe, new power plant. There's a footnote. The Russian An-2, a biplane designed in 1947, is still being built today. 18,000 were produced. The aircraft has no published stall speed because, in strong enough headwinds, it can fly backwards. Certain machines hit a sweet spot. They become infrastructure. Like a bridge. You don't replace a bridge because a newer design is more elegant. You replace it when it falls down. Some of the pilots flying B-52s today are commanding the same airframes their grandfathers flew over Vietnam. The plane was built before its current pilot was born, before its current crew chief was born, before most of the Pentagon staff who fund it were born. We built the B-52 expecting to replace it within 15 years. We built the DC-3 thinking jet airliners would make it obsolete within a generation. We built the KC-135 as a stopgap. None of them got the message. Their factories closed decades ago. Their original engineers are gone. And the airplanes are still in the air, doing the job they were designed to do. On a Tuesday morning in 2025, the future kept arriving. They just... On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 took off from Kuala Lumpur. 239 people on board. A modern Boeing 777, state-of-the-art avionics, satellite communication, radar coverage across most of its route. And then it vanished. Not crashed, not exploded. Vanished. For weeks, the world searched an ocean the size of a continent. For months, families waited for answers that never came. For years, governments spent hundreds of millions of dollars dragging sonar through the deep. And to this day, more than a decade later, we still do not know exactly what happened to MH370. Now stop and think about that for a second. You are watching this on a device that knows your location within 3 meters. Your food delivery app tracks a guy on a scooter in real time. Your AirPods phone home when they fall behind a couch. But a 300-ton airliner carrying hundreds of human beings can disappear from the face of the earth and stay missing forever. How is that possible in 2026? Why, after every major aviation disaster of the last 50 years, are we still pulling answers out of a metal box at the bottom of the sea, instead of streaming them live the moment something goes wrong? The answer is not what you think. It is not about technology. The technology has existed for years. The answer is about money, politics, and a quiet war between airlines, regulators, and the companies that build the boxes themselves. Let's start with the box. The thing we call the black box is actually 2 boxes, and neither of them is black. They are bright orange, painted that way so divers can spot them in wreckage. One records flight data, altitude, speed, engine performance, thousands of parameters per second. The other records cockpit audio, every word, every alarm, every breath the pilots take in their final moments. The first one was invented in 1953 by an Australian engineer named David Warren after his own father died in one of the world's earliest commercial air crashes. Warren had a simple idea. If we could hear what happened in the cockpit, we could stop it from happening again. For decades, that idea saved thousands of lives. But here is the catch. The box only works if you find it. Air France 447 lost over the Atlantic in 2009. It took 2 years and $35 million to recover the recorders. MH370 never found. Every time a plane goes down over water, the same race begins. Because that orange box has a built-in beacon, and that beacon only pings for 30 days. After Air France 447, the rules were updated to extend that to 90 days. But 90 days is nothing compared to an ocean. The Indian Ocean alone is 70 million square kilometers. Black boxes are designed to survive a crash, not to advertise their location. They sink, they get buried in silt, they drift with currents. So engineers have been asking the obvious question for decades. Why do we even need to find the physical box? In your pocket right now, you have a device that uploads 4,000 pixel video to a server orbiting the planet in real time while you walk down the street. The technology to do the same with flight data has existed since at least the early 2000s. Iridium, Inmarsat, Viasat, these satellite networks already cover the entire globe, including the polar routes and deep ocean crossings, where most disappearances happen. Some private jets already stream cockpit data live. Some military aircraft have done it for 30 years. So why not commercial airliners? The answer begins with a number: bandwidth. A modern airliner generates between 1 and 4 gigabytes of flight data per hour. Multiply that by the roughly 100,000 commercial flights happening every single day around the world. Streaming all of that all the time costs money. Estimates put the cost at $1 to $10 per flight hour, per aircraft. Multiply by 25,000 commercial aircraft flying 10 hours a day, every day. Suddenly, you are looking at a multi-billion-dollar annual bill that nobody wants to pay. Airlines do not want to pay it because the average airline makes about $10 of profit per passenger per flight, the price of a sandwich. Add satellite streaming, and that profit evaporates. So everyone points at everyone else, and nothing changes, except the planes keep flying. And occasionally, one of them disappears. But money is only half the story. The other half is something far stranger. It is about who owns the data and who is allowed to see it. When an aircraft is in the air, it is not just a machine. It is a moving piece of legal territory. The data it generates, every keystroke from the pilots, every adjustment to the throttle, every word in the cockpit, is some of the most sensitive information in the entire transportation industry. Airlines guard it because it can be used in lawsuits. Pilot unions guard it because it can be used to fire their members. Manufacturers guard it because it can reveal flaws in their aircraft. Governments guard it because it can be classified under national security. Now imagine streaming all of that, live, to a server on the ground. Who owns the server? Who can subpoena the recordings? Can a court in one country demand cockpit audio from a plane registered in another, flying through the airspace of a third? Can an insurance company access real-time data to deny a claim before the plane has even landed? These are not theoretical questions. They are the exact reasons pilot unions in Europe, the United States, and Asia have fought, repeatedly and successfully, to keep cockpit voice recordings off any live streaming system. They argue, with some justification, that pilots cannot do their job if every word they say is being broadcast in real time to a room full of lawyers. So the data stays in the box, and the box stays on the plane. And when the plane goes down, the search begins all over again. So who actually benefits from this system? Manufacturers benefit because they sell expensive recorders that have to be physically retrieved. Insurance companies benefit because delayed data means delayed claims, and delayed claims mean lower payouts. Airlines benefit because not streaming saves them money and reduces legal exposure. The only people who do not benefit are the families, the husbands and wives and children of the passengers, who in cases like MH370 will spend the rest of their lives without an answer, without a body, without closure. History suggests this will not change because of a regulator or an airline. It will change because of a tragedy. The black box itself only became mandatory after a series of crashes in the 50s. The 30-day beacon was extended to 90, only after Air France 447. The 15-minute tracking rule only existed because MH370 forced the world's hand. Aviation, for all its precision, only changes when people die. And the next change, the move to true real-time streaming, will almost certainly come the same way. Somewhere, on some future flight, another plane will disappear. Another search will fail. The question is not whether real-time flight data is coming. The question is how many more planes have to vanish before it does. So the next time you board a flight, remember, all of that data is being recorded. All of it is sitting in an orange box in the tail, and almost none of it is being seen by anyone on the ground. We trusted the box for 70 years. The question now is, for how much longer can we afford to?